Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on BeamNG Drive with 4 more of your automation cars taking on our Autocross course. We start with a car from Hornball. This is the Hornball's 160i all-wheel drive. It is a pretty decent powered hot hatch, if you like. It is a 364 horsepower all-wheel drive turbo V6 in this one. It's not too heavy either, 955 kilos. Fractionally heavier than my Kestrel, but it has got a fair bit more power to go with it, almost 300 torque as well. So, I mean, statistic-wise, I've been looking at it, it looks pretty good. This is the sort of vehicle that you would perhaps not be at all surprised to see go fast around here. We're going to need decent acceleration. Right, we have got ABS on this one. That's always a useful thing to have. The back end is happy to step out. The back end is happy to move around a little bit more, perhaps in this car than we have seen in some previous vehicles, which is it can be helpful. You can lose a lot of time if the back end is sliding around too much. I have to say, turbos on this are very, very good. It's getting power almost immediately. The gear ratios are kind of where you want them. They're not so short. Oh, I've turned in too soon. We've actually got away with that. I thought I was going to ping a wheel off. Actually, that turn in is pretty bloody good on this car. Yeah, the power is there immediately. The power is there immediately in this, even in second gear. It's not at that horrible point where you're somewhere between, well, first and second is the most likely area we're going to run into that around a course such as this. But from second gear at about, the 19-20 mile an hour mark, this car is very happy to get going. What are we going to be looking at top speed-wise? 88 miles an hour. It's up there with the downforce mobile in terms of top end. This is looking pretty damn fast, actually. I'm really impressed with the way this car gets turned in. It's a lot better turning in than my Kestrel was. My Kestrel was, a little bit on the understeery side. Now, it's not been a perfect run. We did clonk a wall. Actually, clonked a couple of walls. It doesn't even matter. I think we've gone fastest anyway with this, and that was with a couple of clonks on the wall even. That's a damn good car. It's a really, really good car. It's got power all through the rev range, which is so important around here. Power all the way through that rev range is so very, very important. We've seen a lot of cars already have issues with, do I want to be in first gear? Do I want to be in second gear? And just not being able to find a point where they're happy. This second gear out of all of these corners, a little bit too much there from the acceleration. But yeah, second gear out of all of these corners, and it is more than happy to go. As I said, the turn in is excellent. Almost a little bit too much there by me. We're going to have some more sliding around. But this is a little bit of a shonky run. It does seem to be the case that the first run is, even with a bump on the wall, does seem to be the case that the first run is offered, or one of the faster runs, strangely, but there we go. Might be pushing. I know this run's a little bit gone, so I'm kind of slightly experimenting with what I can and can't get away with in the vehicle, and I might be going a little bit too hard with the car in places. We're going to have to brake a little bit early. I think I was a tad wide down here on that previous run. That's more like it. It's not doing any of the weird, funky things that we had from the the IMP Super Sports last time out, when under heavy braking down there. It's just a good, solid. It's what you want from an autocross car. It's exactly what you want from an autocross car. Oh, I've stuffed it up. Just clip the back because it will get turned in well enough to do that. Oh, and I think we have to actually go through the checkpoint the right way, so we've got to back it up far enough. And there we go. That was a poor. Did I not? Oh, we did get there. Okay, that's a terrible time. Terrible run. We kind of ignore that one. I clipped the wall a little bit too much with the back of the car. Got to be careful with that, because it does turn in so well. I'm kind of used to cars understeering around. This thing doesn't. So we've got to... We have got to be mindful of the back of the car. Alright, so yeah, first gear in this car is basically useless, which is absolutely fine. It's tuned to work in second, and that's what we want to see. Now I'm going to try and be a little bit neater and tidier with this. Try and stop wasting time with the car going sideways if we can, because yeah, that's not what we want. It's not what we want the vehicle to be doing. And grab the brakes again. I do quite like going for these later apexes on the exits, kind of focus on the acceleration, especially when you have got a fast accelerating car like this. Go for that late apex, focus on those acceleration points is pretty helpful. Oh, I've not quite got that turned through there. It's all okay. We haven't clonked a wall, at least. We haven't spun the back of the car around, which is, yeah, you know, good news is helpful as we head up towards the, maybe a tad early on the brakes through all of that. Patience through here. Now, don't run so wide, try and not get the back of the car. It's just a little bit in that gear shift as it wants to slide, but it's not too bad. Certainly nowhere near as bad as we have seen from some cars already and from the cars that we are probably inevitably going to see run in this series. I think I actually got the braking point right the first time. I thought I was going to be a little bit early on them, but there we go. And wiggle our way across the line. It's not a better final run. The first run, despite a clonk on the wall, was the quickest. It will go fastest, a 20.1. That's a damn good car. That is a very, very good car indeed. Well, it's going to be perhaps a slightly tougher act to follow, but our next car comes from Calliphora. This is the Zuf 644. It is the first appearance of the kind of classic 911 style of body. All-wheel drive, flat 6 in this naturally aspirated 337 horsepower, 211 torque. It is a little bit down on power and torque compared to the Hornball. It is slightly lighter at 921 kilos. They're only talking about 30 kilos different. Naturally aspirated, you know, does help with the old power delivery front. However, the turbos on that last car were very, very good. So it's might have some magical handling tricks up its sleeve. We will see. Okay, we have got ABS on. that kind of first corner on the first run is going to be the ABS test, I think. Oh, gears. I think we're going to want to be in second. I think we're probably going to want to be in second out of these corners. We should have the power. What happens if we do go for... Oh, we've knocked the front wheel off. I think if I go for first, I don't think it's going to... Yeah, I think if I go for first... 30's not too terrible in first. I think we are probably going to be wanting second, though, on the way out of these corners. I think first to second, it felt like it spanned the wheels up. If you got that shift wrong, it does kind of spin the wheels up slightly. Yeah, second out of these corners, it'll work. It's not too low in the rev range. There's enough power, enough torque to get it going. It's steering surprisingly well, considering we have got a wheel off. We might have to go to first now, the car in its current condition. I will give it credit, this might be one of the best. We're going through an autocross course with a wheel flapping and hanging off. This might be one of the best, although that does make that steering down there very difficult. We're up to 80 miles an hour despite the front wheel hanging about, so, you know... If this goes faster, well, I mean, the Vampire might be in trouble from the three-wheel slightly broken Zuf here. Oh, come on. Stop bouncing around. It's a little bit grumpy. And the wheel's obviously pinged itself into an unhappy place. About 44 we need to go quicker than to beat the Vampire. No. Turn. No. The wheel screwed us there. Oh, limp. It does actually do a 38. The wheel did utterly screw us on the runs of the line there. Just suddenly peeled itself off to us. The car just veered off to the left. Anyway, that was a bit of a mess. I have learnt gears, I mean, second and third are probably going to be where we run almost, aside from the very initial launch, we're probably going to run the entire thing in second and third. Maybe fourth, of course, maybe fourth or fifth down the back straight. But when it comes to the actual corners, we're probably not going to want to go any higher. Don't go down to first. As kind of tempting, as instinctive as it might be in places, it's will... yeah, screw you over in the long run. It's actually got a livelier back end than I was expecting, and than I perhaps experienced from other all-wheel drive cars. I'm going to hazard a guess at a fair amount of rear power bias, perhaps, in this one. Not a bad... It's not a bad handling car at all. Just observations, it is a tad bit more oversteery than some of the vehicles some of the vehicles I have seen, and perhaps some of the vehicles that I would have built. It's perfectly manageable. It's not bad turning through here. I also imagine, I didn't actually pay any attention, I imagine this might be rear-engined and might be the first rear-engine car. That might also go to explain slightly different handling characteristics. It's quite scary at high speeds. It kind of wanders a little bit, almost like not to the same extent, but almost a little bit like the K car that I built. Again, I mean, I don't know what it'd be like if we got to 140 with it. It does feel a little bit wandery, shall we say, down the straight. And there we go. It's a 21.8 for the Zuf. That's more like it. Better time. It is, well, a second and a bit down on the Kestrel. We've got, of course, another run to go. I think it's going to be... I don't think it's going to be able to beat the Hornball. I don't think it's going to be able to go that fast. It might just get into the high 20s with a absolutely perfect run, although that is not the easiest of things to achieve. It's not the easiest thing to achieve anything when you've got only 3 runs. I think there's a couple of times I might have left the car in third on that last one where I could have potentially gone down second. Sometimes it can be quite difficult when you've got such short gear ratios, which a lot of the cars are going to run in this. They're going to run very, very short gear ratios because, well, the course that they're driving on is so tiny. Now, let's... Oh, a little bit wide through this. It's so tempting to try and get carried away and carry speed through that section, but it will give you trouble in the end, or can potentially give you trouble. Oh, little deal. I'll take a slightly different line through there. We can get on the power relatively well. Actually got some understeer through all of that. Now, weave our way here on towards this back straight. Let's hope we can get a good run, good acceleration. Let's not have the car wander. That is really sketchy down there. That is really sketchy. I don't know if it's tiny bits of wheel spin occurring or quite what it might be. Something upsets the car. Maybe it's the aero, I don't know. Something makes that car really sketchy down the back straight. Not quite recovered from that near-death experience. Across the line is actually a very similar time again, another 21.8. I think we might have got a slightly bit wrong in towards that final of the big hairpin, the big stops. Still, 21.8 is a good time. You know, those into the 21s is pretty damn fast around here, considering, yeah, it doesn't quite have the power of some of those. It's perhaps the torque that's missing. That's the bigger thing for this one. A nice car to drive, though. A nice car to drive, but nevertheless, because we got to watch out for that snappy rear end. Our next vehicle, this comes from Jack Cossack. It is the Cossack 1000 silly car build. Rear-wheel drive, another naturally aspirated flat 6 here. 280 horsepower, only 183 torque. So it is perhaps a little down on power and torque. Fairly light, 972 kilos, but yeah, not absurdly light. The rear-wheel drive kind of concerns me. Also, of course, a very, very classic body style. Now, it's not going to be a problem for, it would be a problem for top speed. It's not going to be a problem for what we're doing here. The FailRace livery is potentially going to be an issue for the car falling over. Actually quite cleverly made. It is it's essentially like a black piece of trim. Multiple black pieces of trim have been used to make it look, whoa, it's very oversteery. Yeah. Black bits of trim being used to make the stripe, which is really cool. But, of course, orange and black cars notorious. Oh, it's vibrating. Why is the car vibrating? That's not alarming at all. Again, glad we're only doing about... Whoa! It like judders when it gets oversteer. That's kind of terrifying. I mean, it's not terribly... Considering it is relatively down on power and torque. Compared to those that have run so far, it's not too bad in the old acceleration front. It's just slightly terrifying when it gets to the corners because it just shakes. It looks like it's going to shake itself apart. I don't think it actually is. I'm hoping it's not. I don't think automation cars can. We're going to judder any more down here? No, we're going to be well behaved. Now, what are you going to get top speed wise if we can put that power down? Not very easily put that power down. It's actually pretty damn quick, I will give it that. Braking isn't amazing. However, the straight line speed is up towards the 80 miles an hour mark, which, okay, it's not going to be the fastest, but that's not too shabby, especially for a car we're struggling with traction. Although that's... that was a big, scary oversteering moment. Into the concrete we go. Oh, I'm going to have to watch out for the back end of this. Oh, and it's very nearly fallen over immediately. Bugger. It's all got a little bit wrong for the car. It's not happy anymore. Right. That's dangerous. I think the best thing I can say is very dangerous. We're going to have to really watch out for that back end. Maybe going in sort of higher gears is going to be helpful in all of this. Still, of course, want to be able to get out of these corners pretty well. It might stand a chance of going up there with some of the faster rear-wheel drive cars. Of course, yeah, all-wheel drive is going to be probably the way to get fastest around here, naturally, because you can just jump on the 300-400 horsepower out of every corner with minimal wheel spin. However, we have got, you know, rear-wheel drive cars, front-wheel drive cars running in this competition as well. They will be, I guess, fighting amongst themselves for honour and seeing if they can potentially embarrass any of the all-wheel drive cars. This one, I mean, it feels better to drive in some ways than well, we've had the Edlos. The Edlos really struggled just for pace. It felt good enough to drive, just really struggled for pace. This feels like it puts its power down better, but is less controllable. And the Vampires, our other rear-wheel drive car, was very, very heavy without really enough power for this sort of thing. We are going to run down the back straight. I've got to have a... Good God, it just doesn't even go in a straight line down there. Come on, come on. It really, really doesn't like running down there. And now we're going to get a burst of wheel spin. At least this time we're not into the concrete barrier. I think the fastest rear-wheel drive is about 34 around here. What are we going to be looking at in terms of lap time? Ooh, 33! It's lost the wing and the wheel. Not the mighty wing. We can't be doing with that. 33.2 is not the most, not the most unrespectable time right there. I think, was it the Sakura, the little K car, that did have a 660cc engine, about 150 horsepower. I think that's about 130 if I remember my times correctly. There might be a little bit more pace in this. I think it's going to be difficult to go, you know, too much faster. We are not going to be seeing this challenge at the top of the table. It's not got the power, the acceleration, or, well, really the control, ultimately, to get up there. But it's an interesting choice of vehicle. That juddering is really off-putting. I wonder what causes it. I don't actually know what suspension system, what suspension layout this car is using. I mean, a lot of the high-end cars have got, you know, multi-link push-rod suspensions and whatnot. And this thing, I mean, is probably on something fairly rudimentary, if I'm honest. It's certainly not commonplace to see the cars juddering around. Oh, I thought I turned it a little bit too soon. I actually did get it just about right there. We're going to run up towards this next corner, wait to get the car. There we go. It'll get some turning eventually. That particular turn, we can actually get away with getting on the power a little bit earlier. We can get away with just that little bit earlier because we can run wide on the exit. It doesn't really matter. Around here we have got to be careful with where we get on the power, and how is it going to put the power down with a wobble and a more wobble. Come on, I just want to get to full throttle in you. 77 miles an hour, still really sketchy slowing down. Really sketchy slowing down, really sketchy with the wheel spin. I don't want to go any braver on the old throttle because I might end up clonking into that like we almost did there. Oh, only just pull that one up in time. And then around these final corners we go across the finish line. It's not a better run. Oh, we've done the same. Same wheel, and the wing is off on the car. The Cossack 1000 silly car builds is done. It's slightly disconcerting when everything is shaking. However, not the most terrible in terms of a runtime. Could have been a lot worse, certainly. And the final car to go today is the Bramhall Viva VSI WRC. This from the Maldonado. It is the most powerful car of the day. 443 horsepower from a turbo inline 4. It is all-wheel drive. Also got by far and away the most torque, 382, almost 100 more than the Hornball. It is, though, the heaviest. It's 1,281 kilos. Now, that's not terribly heavy. You know, we're talking 300, 400 kilos heavier than some of the cars that have gone towards the top of the table, but yeah, has got the power to go with it. We'll see. Are the turbos going to be up to task? It's not ludicrously overpowered, so the turbos might be able to help the car out in getting out of these corners, or we might be... Oh, is this going to want to be a first gear? It looks like it's going to want to be a... I don't really want cars to be a first gear launch out of these sections. I don't think it has ABS either, judging by the looks of it. Yeah, I don't think we... ideally, we want to be able to fire out the corners in second. I'm going to have to try it with this, because it's... yeah, if it's that transition between first to second when we're kind of loading the car already and it gets a little bit unhappy. It's actually got quite soft suspension. It's kind of moving around a lot more than we've seen from other cars. Now, that would probably be brilliant when it came to normal driving conditions, you know, on bumpy roads, because, you know, a lot of the beam circuits aren't completely flat and so on. But when you're out here, it does look like it's moving around a lot more on its suspension. It's a cool looking car. It's a cool looking car, indeed. It looks very wobbly compared, especially on that transition there from first to second. How are we going to do straight line speed? We should be pretty quick. 83 miles an hour down there, which is, yeah, not slow whatsoever. Oh, a little bit of understeer through all of that. Again, up towards the next hairpin. I'm not really 100% sure how much brakes I can get away with in this before it all gets a little bit locked up. Oh, that's a tad wide through there. Okay, a little bit of a scruffy run from me on the first bit there, so 124.9. The moving around on the suspension is, I think it's more alarming than it is particularly bad. It's slightly concerning to see the car dive so much when all of the other cars have been, you know, with these ultra stiff suspensions and whatnot. I mean, the body style might not help this car. It is a taller vehicle than a lot of the cars that we have seen. Are we going to be a little bit sideways? We are going to be a little bit sideways out of there, although we will actually be quite nicely set up for this next part. Can we get away with second gear on the exit? We might do. We'll give it a try. We'll give it a try with just running it second gear out of these corners rather than going down to first, just so we don't have to. I mean, it's kind of on the limit of what I'd want to get away with. It's still getting out of the turns pretty well, so I'm going to say second gear is probably okay for this. Down towards the next hairpin we go. That's actually pretty neat through there. Happy with that line. If we could do that every time, that would be that will be good. I'm going to be a smidge wide over there. It will work out quite nicely. It's a nice easy car to place exactly where you want once you've got the hang of it a little bit. This doesn't feel amazingly fast, but sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes if it doesn't feel amazingly fast, like the Zuff with all of its terrifying wandering felt amazingly fast. This goes as quick as it down the straights. This does go as quick as the Zuff down the straights, but the Zuff feels faster because it's, well, terrifying you and moving around near constantly. Now, these next couple of corners, this is where these slightly bigger cars might come a little unstuck. That's a much better time. It's a 21.2. It's a big roll after the finish line. It's a very big roll after the finish line indeed. It's right up there. It's right up there. I mean, yeah, it's going to need a second if it's going to challenge the Hornball. I don't know whether it can manage that, but certainly the composure is the way to go. I think I like the leave it in second gear. It might not quite immediately get the power in the same way. However, if it means we're not oversteering, not that sudden snap oversteer that we've got to deal with, I think that will save me more time in the long run. So I don't want to be chucking the cars around. Well, there's very little time to be gained from chucking the cars around in that manner, and a lot more time to be lost from little mistakes. When you've got such a short amount of runs to go with the car, you're much better off going with the smooth and consistent, if you can, with the vehicle. Mindful on the brakes down there. It's where some of the cars, it's not as bad as, what is it, like the California we had in the first episode, that really it was about 20% brake pressure and everything got locked up. This is, yeah, not as bad as that, but you've got to be mindful still that you don't lock the car up. We are going to... I mean, I'm not even sure if this thing isn't tripoding around some of these corners. It dives so much. Not had a car quite like it yet. Who knows what we are going to get as this series goes on. We're going to run up the banking a little bit, that's fine. You can kind of use the banking to help get the car turned through all of that. Now run down towards the final hairpin, or a hairpin for the final time. And then this is honestly, this is actually one of the nastier corners, this little section here, because you want to be flat out, but you can't. It is not a better time. The previous run, that previous run I did feel was pretty damn good. That was not a bad run. 22-1 from the car, but yeah, the second run was real nice with this. It's a good car. Again, it is a good car around here, a nice car to drive, quite nicely well balanced. It is perhaps not... I feel like it moves around so much on the suspension that that actually gives it a little bit of a little bit of trouble. You are fighting a lot with the, I say with the suspension. Yeah, got a lot more movement going on. It doesn't quite get turned in as well as that Hornball. And the Hornball is better with the power delivery. This one here, you are stuck at that horrible between first and second gear as to how to get the power down. Still though, into the 21s is damn fast around this circuit. On to the results, and we do indeed have a new leader. The Kestrel has been displaced from the top of the table. The Hornball will take that spot with a 120.1. It is all very close, though, around here. The Bramhall, that'll go into a 4th place with that 21.2. Not quite able to crack the top 3, but it is a few tenths of a second faster than the Super Performante. The Zuff actually does pretty well also, considering perhaps not the easiest of cars to drive. That'll go into 6th place with a 21.8. And the Cossack 1000, the City Car build vehicle, will go 11th. It does become the fastest of the rear-wheel drive cars. It can't beat the front-wheel drive K-Car, but it will beat the Endloss 33.2. It gets very close between the pair of them, despite the fact it looked like it was shaking itself apart through most of the course. So, yeah, the Kestrel enjoyed itself a little bit at the top of the table. As it's a pretty solid car when it comes to this. But yeah, that Hornball, the way it delivers its power, the way it gets turned in, it is just, yeah, it's just a better overall car. That boat is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.